Welcome to Yoga Vahini. This is a session conducted by Sri Srivatsa Ramaswamy on the ancient text of Sankhya Karika. It's going to be a 5-day session, about 25 hours. We hope to really learn something about the deepest things of Indian philosophy.
ஓம் ஐந்து கரத்தனை ஆனை முகத்தனை இந்தின் இளம்பிறை போன்றைய ஈற்றினை நந்தி மகந்தனை ஞானக் கொழுந்தினை புந்தியில் வைத்தடி போற்றுகின்றேனே. யோகேன சித்தஸ்ய பதேன வாசாமலம் ஷரீரஸ்ய ச வைத்யகேன யோபாகரோத்தம் பிரவரம் முனீனாம் பதஞ்சலிம் பிராஞ்சலிரானதோஸ்மி. ब्रह्मा मुरारिस्त्रिपुरान्तकश्च भानुशशि भूमिसुतो बुधश्च गुरुश्च शुक्रशनिराहुकेतवो कुर्वन्तु सर्वे मम सुप्रभातं. भृगुर्वसिष्ठक्रतुरङ्गिराश्च मनुपुलश्च पुलहश्च गौतमः रैभ्यो मरीचिश्चवनोऽथ दक्षो कुर्वन्तु सर्वे मम सुप्रभातं. सनत्कुमारश्च सनन्दनश्च सनातनोऽप्यासुरिसिंहलौ च सप्तस्वरा सप्तरसातलानि कुर्वन्तु सर्वे मम सुप्रभातं. सप्तार्णवा सप्तकुलाचलाश्च सप्तऋषयो द्विपवनानि सप्त भूरादिकूर्मो भुवनानि सप्त कुर्वन्तु सर्वे मम सुप्रभातं. पृथिवी सगन्धा सरसास्तदापस्पर्शश्च वायुर्ज्वलितञ्च तेजः नभश्च शब्दं महता सहैव कुर्वन्तु सर्वे मम सुप्रभातं. ब्रह्माणं शङ्करं विष्णुं यमं रामं धनुं बलिं सप्तैतान् संस्मरेन् नित्यं दुःस्वप्नस्तस्य नश्यति. पुण्यश्लोको नलो राजा पुण्यश्लोको युधिष्ठिरः पुण्यश्लोका च वैदेही पुण्यश्लोको जनार्दनः. कार्कोटकस्य नागस्य दमयन्त्या नलस्य च ऋतुपर्णस्य राजऋषेः कीर्तनं कलिनाशनं. जानामि धर्मं न च मे प्रवृत्तिर्जानाम्यधर्मं न च मे निवृत्तिः. केनापि देवेन हृदि स्थितेन यथा नियुक्तोऽस्मि तथा करोमि. इत्थं प्रभाते परमं पवित्रं पठेत् स्मरेत् वा शृणुयात् च तत्त्वत्. दुःस्वप्ननाशस्तु इह सुप्रभातं भवेत् च नित्यं भगवत्प्रसादात् भवेत् च नित्यं भगवत्प्रसादात् भवेत् च नित्यं भगवत्प्रसादात्. ॐ अजामेकां लोहितशुक्लकृष्णां बह्वीं प्रजां जनयन्ती गुंसरूपाम्. अजो ह्येको जुषमाणोऽनुशेते जहात्येनां भुक्तभोगामजोऽन्यः. ॐ So first, a happy New Year to all of you, and thank you for taking the trouble of attending this program. Sankhya is not the subject people normally study, so usually it is left to the scholars, and then the scholars make it more difficult for ordinary people to understand. So this is not a Yoga Sutra. Somehow we try to understand Yoga Sutras, but Sankhya you can avoid. But Sankhya has got a lot of information which you don't find in other texts. So it is an important text. In the olden days, people like my Guru Krishnamacharya, they were not only yoga acharyas, they studied all the 6 Vedic philosophies like Nyaya, Vaiseshika, Mimamsa, then Sankhya, Yoga and Vedanta, so that they had a much broader perspective of the ancient Indian thinking, the Vedic thinking in those days. So once you study Yoga Sutras, then people start studying the Upanishads, and some people start studying the Sankhya. So if you study the Sankhya, Yoga Sutras and the the Upanishads, you get a much broader perspective of the Nivritti Shastras. Nivritti Shastras are those darshanas which talk about complete cessation of rebirth and things. Of course, you may say I don't believe in rebirth, but rebirth does not depend upon our belief. If it is there, it is there. So these philosophies became these Nivritti Shastras became important. So the olden days, people used to study all the three, that is the Sankhya, Yoga and the Upanishads. Before you go to the Brahma Sutras, they normally study the Upanishad, they study the Bhagavad Gita, and then ultimately they study the Upanishad, so that they get a much a well-rounded view of the Vedic philosophy. What do the Vedas say ultimately? What is it they got to offer? So thank you again, as I told you, for coming with this program. I want to thank Saraswati for this opportunity to teach Yoga Sutras. Yoga Sutra, consists of 4 chapters, 194 sutras or so. Now you look surprised. I thought that most of you were looking very tense, so okay, we will go through the Sankhya Karika, not Yoga Sutra, not Yoga Sutras. Right. What is, as I told you, Sankhya is a darshana, is one of the 6 philosophies, and the Sankhya say there is only one philosophy, which is Sankhya. They are very, very proud of their philosophy. They say that no other philosophy goes to the extent to which Sankhyas go. They go very deep into the nature of the self, nature of the universe, the origin of the universe. All these things they go into in a much greater detail, or in a more complete manner. So they say that there is only one darshana, ekameva darshanam, khyatireva darshanam, or sankhямeva darshanam. There is only one philosophy, which is Sankhya philosophy. According to them, you are not a complete philosopher until and unless you study the Sankhya. That is their view. And many people who study Sankhya also come to the view that it's more thorough, more comprehensive. And the other 2 philosophies, the Nivritti Shastras, both yoga takes a lot from Sankhya and develops on it. When it's more practical, yoga is more practical. Whatever is supposed to be achieved by the study of Sankhya, you need the means by achieving this, and then they say these are the methods by which we can achieve this. And the yogis divide the sadhakas into 3 groups, the entry-level yogis, then the lifelong yogis, and the born yogis. And to them they come out with 3 different approaches. One will be the Kriya Yoga for the entry-level yogi, then the Ashtanga Yoga for the lifelong yogi, and the first chapter Samadhi Yoga for born yogi. Some people can get to Samadhi even when they are young, So the yogis, so they are told how to approach, how to get to the goal. But then basically it by and large subscribes to the views of the Sankhyas. How many of you have studied Sankhya before? How many of you have studied? Anybody else? Okay, now let us get into the subject. What is the meaning of the word Sankhya? What is the meaning of the word? Samyak khyapeti iti Sankhya. When you divide that, the vigraha, break it down, it gets Samyak khyapeti iti Sankhya. Samyak means thoroughly, completely. Samyak means thoroughly or completely. Kya means, have you heard of the word kya? Khyati, we have come across the word in the Yoga Sutras. Khyati is to kya prakatane, that's what the Dhatu Pata says. Kya means it is an exposition. Samyak, thoroughly, khyapyeti is a complete exposition of whatever has to be, whatever one has to know. What is it one has to know according to them? Everybody should know what is the true nature of oneself. Everybody has to know what is the source of the universe. And then one has to understand how this universe evolved. All these 3 things will have to be known. So these 3 are supposed to be explained in a very logical way by these Sankhyas according to them. So that is why the word Sankhya itself indicates that it is an exposition. It's a what you call complete exposition. Sankhya means a complete exposition. Virtually it also is very similar to the word darshana. Darshana also is an exposition. Darshayati iti darshana. Anyway, Sankhya refers to a text which explains to you in a very logical way the nature of the self, the origin of the universe, and the way universe evolved. So once you know all these things, you can say that you know everything that you will have to know. You have to know. Okay. Right. Sankhya. Then the other word in this text is Sankhya Karika. What is meant by Karika? Karika again comes from the root kri to do. Karika means, comes from the root kri to do, like, karma, karya, all of them come from the root word kara, hand. All of them come from the root kru, to do. So karika is a work. Karika means a work. Here it refers to a literary work. So Sankhya Karika means a literary work, you know, an authentic literary work on Sankhya. So that is the, so it amounts to saying it is an authentic text on yoga. I'm sorry, authentic text on Sankhya. Is it clear? Sankhya Karika, right, that's what it means. And the author of this Sankhya Karika is said to be what you call a poet come scholar, known as Ishvara Krishna. According to some scholars, Ishvara Krishna was an avatar of Kalidasa. Have you heard of Kalidasa? Yeah, he is supposed to be an avatar of Kalidasa, because you know, some of the works are, the Sankhya Karika is considered to be a work not only for the content of it, but also the poetic nature in which the whole text is written. So some people appreciated the, what you call, the literary aspect of Sankhya Karika, and some people go really are what you call enamored at the content of the Sankhya Karika. So both ways it is a great text. Both ways. It's a very short text. It's not very lengthy. It is very short. And the entire Sankhya Karika is written in a what you call, in a meter called Arya meter, you know. Have you heard of the meters in Sanskrit and poetry? In Sanskrit poetry, it's called chandas. Different meters are used in the, different meters are used there. You know, the most of the shlokas that you find in Sanskrit works are of the Anushtup meter, where, you know, Anushtup chandas. Most of the shlokas that you find, if you take the Mahabharata, Ramayana, and most of the literary works that are written after the Vedic time, they are mostly in the Anushtup meter. Anushtup meter is 8 syllables per quarter, you know. But take the shloka. Have you heard of Vishnu Sahasranama? Vishvam Vishnur Vashatkaro. Vishvam Vishnur Vashatkaro. 8 syllables. Bhuta Bhavya Bhavat Prabhu. Bhuta Krit Bhuta Bhrit Bhavo. Bhuta Krit Bhuta Bhrit Bhavo. Bhutatma Bhuta Bhavanaha. So every shloka will have 8 syllables per line. So similarly, most of the shlokas are like this. And if you read the Bhagavad Gita, or if you read the Vishnu Sahasranama, most of the shlokas are Anushtup meter. Even in the Vedas, you find many of them are in Anushtup meter. But there are other meters. There is another meter called Gayatri meter. Gayatri has got 6 syllables per line. Gayatri, Ushnup is 7 syllables. Anushtup is 8. Anushtup, Brihati 9. Gayatri, Ushnuka, Anushtup, Brihati, Pankti, next one. There are 7 well-known chandas which are found in Sanskrit literature. But then there are unique, what you call, unique meters also. And this, what you call, which Sankhya Karika is written in Arya meter. And it basically consists of, here they are not counted in terms of syllables, but they are counted in terms of matras or beats. You know, a beat, a single, a short vowel is 1 beat, a long vowel is 2 beats, and some what you call compound letters are again 2 beats. So they got a different method of approaching. So it becomes much easier for you to chant the Arya meter. It's very, very, what you call, very nice to hear, you know, Arya meter, because it is to a number of beats, or a rhythm is there. Okay, so not many works are written in Arya meter. Arya meter is not the only one which is beyond the 7. There are a number of other meters. There is a, I will tell you a story, not a, we'll get into Sankhya Karika. Once we get into Sankhya Karika, you will want me to go back and tell you stories. See, once you get into it, you'll feel so, you know, you will feel, oh, why not he tell some stories rather than teaching the subject. So we'll get into it shortly. Yes, this is written, as I told you, in Arya meter. The Arya meter, again there are 4 padas. The first pada consists of 12 matras. The second pada consists of 18 matras. The third patra is 12 matras, and the last one is 15 matras. So how much? 30 plus 12, 42 plus 15, 42 plus 15, how much? 57 matras are there in this. So it is a much longer, the shlokas are much longer than you find it in the Anushtup meter. But then a lot of information. And then the way Ishvara Krishna packed the slokas, these were virtually like in sutras. There is not a single unnecessary word, except for the sake of sake of the chandas requirement. Otherwise, you don't find any unnecessary words at all in it. Every word will have to be understood to be able to understand the entire shloka. You can't just gloss over. Anyway, so this Arya meter is very, very, very unique. And some people say that, as I told you, he is an avatar of Kalidasa. Have you heard of the Kamakshi temple? Anybody here? Kamakshi temple? I heard of Kanchipuram Kamakshi temple, yes. In the Kamakshi temple, there's a Sthala Purana. There was a dumb devotee. Dumb means, somebody who can't speak. Am I right? Yeah. Come on, wake up. He can't speak, but he was a great devotee of the goddess there, Kamakshi. Then he used to stay there all the time. And the food, whatever prasada was given to him, he used to eat, so that he used to, virtually, he's an, he was an orphan, nobody was there to take care of him. He was completely surrendered himself to the goddess there, Kamakshi. And he had so much of devotion, and then even though he was dumb, his mind was very, very active. He wanted to say so many great things about the goddess, so he couldn't couldn't say that. So one night after everything was, the temple was closed, and he was just thinking about the goddess. She appeared before him, and as a young lady, and then asked him to open his mouth. And then, as some of you may know, she spit the beetle, chew she had, and then to his mouth, and then immediately he was able to speak. And then he wrote, in 500 shlokas, he praised the goddess Kamakshi, and that came to be known as Mukha Panchashati. Mukha means a dumb, Pancha means 5, Shati means 100, 500 shlokas divided into 5 chapters. And then the first chapter, each was 100 shlokas, 500 shlokas. And later on the temple carved all the shlokas in the temple walls. I think now if you go there, you can see this. In the 80s, the 1980s, between 1980 and 1995, I studied Vedic chanting with Krishnamacharya. So in Yoga Sutras, between 80 and 1995, I recorded number of Sanskrit works, some Vedic, some non-Vedic. In the matter of 15 years, I recorded about 30 such works. And first I started with Yoga Sutras, and then when it came out, nobody bought that. So I decided to stop that. But then the producer, the company owner, master recording company, he said that, why don't you try something else? Then he asked me to do Lalita Sahasranama. So I was familiar with that, but so I took some time, and then that he liked, and then from that time onwards I went on doing number of those chants, Lalita Sahasranama, then Vishnu Sahasranama, then some Vedic texts like the Surya Namaskara, then Mahanarana Upanishad, Taittiriya Upanishad. And one day he said, with about five years into the whole process, he told me, Wanda, why don't you do Mukha Panchashati? I've heard about it, but I have never seen the text. I said, I don't know. I said, well, I thought it would be like other texts. So I said, yes, but it took 1 month for me to find the text. Once I found the text, then it was really challenging because each set of 100 shlokas was in a different meter. And then, it took some time for me to to be able to chant the whole thing. So I chanted the 500 shlokas, and it was recorded. It took about 3 hours, 3 hours to chant the entire 500 shlokas. And then once it was recorded, was about to be released, one of my friends who came to know about it, he took me to, have you heard of Paramacharya? Okay, Paramacharya, he took me there. One afternoon we went there, then we waited, and then after he came, he said that so-and-so is here, he has recorded the Mukha Panchati. He was a bit skeptical, and then said, okay, let me listen to it. So we played it. We played the first chapter for about 10 minutes. Then he said, have you done all the 5 chapters? I said, yes. He looked surprised. Then he asked me to, to play the 4th chapter and all that. There are 5 chapters. First is known as the Arya Shataka, then Stuti Shataka, then we got Kataksha Shataka, then Padaravinda Shataka, and Mandasmita Shataka. Of course, I don't know the order now. Anyway, so he listened to it, and then after about, he spent about half an hour listening to the whole thing. And then he blessed me with a shawl, and and it was probably the best thing that happened to me in my life. Then he said that he asked the temple authority, the Mutt authorities, to get copies of it and regularly play it in the Kamakshi temple and the Ekambareshwara temple there. So 1 month later I went there. Nobody did anything about it. So that was the end of it. So the first chapter is Arya Shataka. The Arya Shataka is written in the Arya meter. It is written in the Arya meter. The same Arya meter is used by, and Mukha is said to be an avatar of Kalidasa himself. And then Ishvara Krishna also has written the whole thing in the Arya meter. So Arya meter is said to be a favorite meter for Kalidasa. So I wanted to tell you the story and also tell something about myself. Anyway, last year I found out that this particular the album is available in what you call jukebox. Okay. Anyway, yeah. Anyway, so this is in Arya Shataka. As I told you, Arya Shataka is a very very beautiful meter. That's it. So the totally in Sankhya Karika there are 72 shlokas. And some people say, some scholars, especially Western scholars, say that there are only 60 shlokas because Shashti Tantra is mentioned somewhere. Shashti Tantra means 60 shlokas mentioned somewhere, and then 12 shlokas were added. Some were interposed, some were extrapolated, whatever it be. So, but then so far as my guru is concerned, he said he considered all the 72 shlokas to be authentic, and he taught them. And several scholars, especially there are 2 well-known commentaries for Sankhya. The 2 well-known commentaries, one by Vachaspati Mishra, the other one is by Gaudapada. 2 commentaries are there. So the English translations of the commentaries are also. I didn't want you to go into the commentaries in the beginning itself. Then what happens, you come to the program and then go back and read the commentaries, and then that's the best way to confuse yourself. First go through the text. First go through the text and then go to the commentary. That's what Krishnamacharya would do when he was teaching the Bhagavad Gita, or especially the Yoga Sutras. First time he will go through the sutras, word by word. He explained the words. He won't go into the commentary. He will explain the words, go to the the root meaning of those words, so that when you read the commentaries, you won't completely deviate from the text. If you read the English commentaries, I'm not talking about the old Vyasa commentary or the Shankara's commentary. When you read the English, interpretation of the sutras, many times they use words, one author reads another English commentary and then writes another commentary. So by the time you are able to get to it, you sometimes lose the essence of the sutra. So seriously, first of all, you must go through the text, take every word, try to find out what it means, and then go to the commentators. Commentators naturally you'll be able to build on that. You'll be able to build on that. If you merely study the commentaries straight away, and then sometimes what happens is, it's not the right way to do it. Okay. So here also what we will try to do is we will try to go through the text word by word. Later on, if you want, we can read the commentaries and try to expand on your knowledge of this text. Any questions at this point? No? Yes?
Goals of the Sankhya Karika, nature of the self, origin of the universe.
And the nature of the universe itself, how it expanded, the evolution itself. Evolution, how did the evolution take place according to them? So these are the three information that you find in the Sankhya Karika. Okay, now can we get into the text? And so the Sankhya is not something Ishwara Krishna, what do you call, Ishwara Krishna developed by sitting under a banyan tree. You know, it's a tradition. It's a tradition. They don't claim that it is, their intuitive understanding of the nature of this. Yes. So they go back and then, they trace everything to the Vedas. According to them, information about the Sankhya is available in the Vedas. So it's called a Vedic Darshana. There are 6 Vedic Darshanas, 6 Vedic philosophies. Even though they differ among themselves, all of them owe their allegiance to the Vedas. The Vaiseshika, Nyaya, Mimamsa, then Sankhya, Yoga, and the Vedanta. These are the 6 philosophies. All of them say that, they are called Astika Darshana because they subscribe to the authority of the Vedas, right? And then there are before Ishwara Krishna, there are 3 other Sankhya scholars are referred to. One is Kapila. Kapila is mentioned in the what you call Bhagavata Purana. Kapila Devahuti Samada. Kapila explains to his mother, the Sankhya philosophy. It's a Seswara Sankhya, Kapila. Then Asuri is another sage that is mentioned, who is a proponent of propagated Sankhya. Then we got the Panchashika is another one, and finally we got Ishwara Krishna in this lineage, well known. There are many more, but these are the well known ones. One is known as Asuri. Asuri is also the name with the Nityasuri, which, what is meant by Asuri? How can you have the name of an Asura for a sage? No, the word Asuri is different from an Asura. The prefix A, when add Sura means a divine being. Asura means one who is not a divine being. Whereas the Asuri is, Sura is a divine being. The prefix is A, the long A. A means complete. So one who is completely divine is called Asuri. A person who is not divine is called Asura. So here Asura refers to not an Asura, but it refers to somebody who is totally divine, completely divine. Okay, so somebody would ask the question. If you didn't ask the question, but it doesn't matter, let me tell you. Asuri. Then, in fact, in our daily morning Pratasmarana, we refer to Asuri also. Sanat Kumarascha, Sanandanascha, Sanatanopi, Asuri Simhalaucha. Sanat Kumara, Sanandana, Sanatana, these are the Nityasuris. Asuri is considered to be one of them. There is a story about the Nityasuris, so when we find time, we'll come to that story. Right. Now let us get to the text now. Okay, let us get to the. What is the first shloka? Have got the text with you, all of you? Okay. All of you have the text? Let's go to the first sutra. Okay. Before getting into it, I want to tell you one more thing. Where is the reference to Sankhya in the Vedas? There is a chapter, there is a Upanishad called Mahanarayana Upanishad, which is the last chapter of the Krishna Yajurveda. Last chapter of Krishna Yajurveda. There the, what do you call this, mantra comes. Ajame kam lohita shukla krishnam bhakvim prajam janayanti gumsarupam ajo hyeko jushamano nushete jahatyenam bhukta bhogam ajo nyaha. This particular shloka, I will explain to it later. This contains all the basic information about Sankhya. So if you understand that particular Vedic mantra, you don't have to spend all the time studying this. Ajam Ekam Lohita Shukla Krishnam, that refers to Prakriti. Bhakvim Prajam Janayantim Sarupam, Ajo Keko Jushamano Nishete. One refers to a individual soul which is in bondage like us, and then it refers to another soul which is completely free. This is what it explains. Okay, this one simple shloka. So this is found in other Upanishads like Shvetashvara Upanishad, slightly modified, and many people use this particular mantra as a, what do you call, just like you got the prayer mantra for Yoga Sutras, this is used as the, what do you call, Shanti mantra for the Sankhya Karika. Okay, let's go to the first shloka. What is the first shloka? Dukkhatrayabhigataha. Do you have it with you? Huh? இல்லை பார்க்குறேன், முதல்ல எனக்கு சரியாக வருதா பார்க்குறேன். दुःखत्रयाभिघातात् जिज्ञासा तदभिघातके हेतौ दृष्टे सा पार्थ चेन्न एकान्तात् अन्ततः अभावात्. Right. So this is the first shloka. As I told you, this is written in Arya meter. So दुःखत्रयाभिघातात् जिज्ञासा तदभिघातके हेतौ दृष्टे सा पार्था चेन्न एकान्तात्यन्ततो भावात्. It's easy to read, it's not difficult. You can maintain the same, same way and then chant the entire Sankhya Karika. Okay, let us go word by word. Okay. What is the first word we have? Dukkha. It's not very good. Why should you start with dukkha? In fact, many of the other texts, if you see the Yoga Sutra, it starts with Atha Yoga Anushasanam. If you read the Brahma Sutras, Athato Brahma Jignasa, because the word Atha means now. Atha also means, something auspicious. So they want to start these texts with an auspicious word. So but there are other words which are auspicious. Shrihi or Om they may start. Atha is the first letter they normally use. So many people criticize the Sankhya Karika saying, you start with a what do you call it, with a not accepted word, dukkha, oh, you don't. But then of course the authors say, now we are talking about merely saying Atha is auspicious is no good. You must know how to remove dukkha. If you remove dukkha, automatically what results is auspiciousness. So I am talking about not creating dukkha, but removing dukkha. So I have to emphasize the thing that is to be done. For auspiciousness to take place, the dukkha will have to be removed. So let us start with that. Okay, let us take the word dukkha. Dukkha traya abhigataha. Let us take the word dukkha. What is the meaning of the word dukkha? The word dukkha can be split into two. Du plus kham. Du plus kham. Dukkham. What is the prefix du? What does it mean? What does it mean? Du means something which is vitiated. Du is something bad, isn't it? All of know this. Dusvapna. When you get up in the morning, when you had a nightmare, you had a bad feeling, isn't it? Dukkha, that creates bad feeling, in you. So the word du refers to something which is bad, right? Now, have you heard of the dukkha, dusvapana, as I told you? Have you heard of Duryodhana? Duryodhana. Why do you call him Duryodhana? Why do you call him Duryodhana? Tell me something.
He's a bad.
No, yes. See, if he's do you think that, what do you call his parents, Dhritarashtra, and he would have named his son as Duryodhana? No, Duryodhana. So Duryodhana, Yodhana means Yuddha, Yodhana means a fighter, Yodhana is a fighter. Duryodhana means a bad fighter. What does it mean? In the olden days there were rules by which you got to conduct war. You had to fight only during the daytime. That is, you start fighting after sunrise, and after sunset you got to return to the barracks. But nowadays they start in the middle of the night, especially 2 o'clock. When everybody is asleep, they bomb. They bomb the city, they bomb everything. Everything is completely changed. So Duryodhana means Yodhana, a warrior who uses wrong means, unjust means. So Duryodhana is what it's true, because if you read the what you call the Mahabharata, you will find that he uses not very straightforward methods for his ends. So actually, his parents, don't ask me where I find it, I've heard it said that his parents named him as Suyodhana. Su means good. Suyodhana was a name given to him. But over a period of time, when other people found out that this fellow was behaving like this, so he became his given name. You know, sometimes when you don't like a teacher, you know, his name may be good, you give a bad name to him, isn't it? So like that, people started calling him as Duryodhana, and then he came to be known as Duryodhana. Not only that, his other brothers also had a prefix du. Okay, du means bad. Du means bad. So here the word dukkha is a very interesting word. Kam means what? Kam means space. Kam means space. Okay. When the space is vitiated, you know, like for instance, right now what is happening in Delhi, you know, the whole atmosphere is completely, the physical space is completely polluted. Now the dukkha here refers to not the physical space, it refers to the mental space called the chitta akasha. You know chitta akasha? There are three akashas mentioned in the what do you call, in the old literature. One is called the bhuta akasha. Then the next one is the chitta akasha. Then thirdly the chidakasha. Chidakasha is the space of consciousness. Chitta akasha is the space of what do you call, mental space, and bhuta akasha is the physical space which we are familiar with. Okay. So here the word dukkha refers to not necessarily the physical space. The physical space may be good, but the mental base, what do you call, space may be bad. Okay, everything is fine, beautiful, nice weather. But I may be miserable inside me. So my chitta akasha is vitiated. I feel dukkha here. Okay, dukkha means a vitiated mental space. The word dukkha means a vitiated mental space. Is it clear? Dukkha. Right. Now, because only in the mental space all the vrittis take place. That is why Patanjali calls it chitta vritti. Even now, right now, even though I am seeing all of you here and speaking here, everything takes place in my chitta akasha. Everything takes place in the mental space only. Everything takes place only there. Only we feel the physical space, but actually what is according to the yogis, everything is taking place in the chitta akasha. So I got to do everything so that the chitta akasha is not vitiated. So rather than trying to clear up the whole world, change the whole world, if I can change my chitta akasha, if I can keep my chitta akasha fairly clean, then I won't have the same kind of problem. So that's why when the bhuta akasha is clear, some people inside don't feel good. Even when the bhuta akasha is bad, some people's chitta akasha is good. So there is a disconnect between what is outside and what is inside. That is the difference between different people, right? So here the word dukkha refers to, kam means space, du means vitiated, dukkha refers to a vitiated mental space, right? Dukkha. It's a beautiful word. It's not a good word, but it's a beautiful word. The way the word dukkha is developed, is constructed. Okay. Then the next word is traya. Traya means three. Traya means three, whether it is English or Sanskrit, traya is three. Traya. Now he says there are three types of dukkha, not three types of dukkha, three causes of dukkha. You see, dukkha is the same, you know. When you have a stomach ache, you feel that the pain is, there is nothing worse than a stomach ache until you get a headache. When you get a headache, you know, what do you call migraine? Migraine, right. So when you get that, then you will find that it's the worst thing that can happen to you. So dukkha is more or less the same, but what changes is what causes them are said to be three types. What are the three types of dukkha? Or through the adhyatmika dukkha they call it, adi bhautika dukkha and adi devika dukkha. Okay, these are the three causes of dukkha. What is it by adhyatma dukkha? Caused by your own self. Many times we create trouble, what do you call it? Something like self-inflicted injuries, you know. You create problem for yourself. And also problems created by this body, you know. When you get sick, you know. When you get sick, there is dukkha in you. When you get sick, you get dukkha. When you are ill, you are in dukkha. The dukkha is again the adhyatma, this is called adhyatmika. The adhyatma dukkha means created by myself, within myself. Only I suffer, others don't suffer because of that. I suffer because of that. Adhyatmik dukkha. Adhyatmika dukkha again is divided into two, Vyadhi and Adi. Vyadhi means the physical ailments. Today, as I told you, today headache, tomorrow stomach ache, third day cold, fourth day fever, fifth day, I have a fall down, hurt my, like that, different things. It keeps on, something or the other, something or other. You get up in the morning, whole body ache. As you get older, you will feel all these things, lots of, that's all physical ailments. And then there is one group. The other one is what you call mental ailment. There is no physical problem, but then my mind is not happy, There are, when I'm not happy, what do? I try to do something so that I can make myself happy. When I'm poor, I try to make myself happy by earning more and more money. What do? Sometimes I need money to be happy. I sometimes beg, I work or overwork or overtime I work. I borrow or steal or do something so that I get money so that I'll be able to be happy. There are so many ways I try to make myself happy. Right? To make my mind happy. Physically I'm fine. There is nothing wrong with me. I'm able to get a reasonable amount of food. I'm quite fine with that. But still, the mind says, I still have a reasonable amount of bank balance. Okay? But still, I'm not happy. So I want to make more money. Because even though I make more money, it is not going to make any difference. I got a house, I got a family, I got everything, I got a bank balance. But still, my mind is not happy because my mind wants me to make more money. I keep on making more and more money, and then it goes on and on. And by the time I die, what happens? I keep, my bank balances increase, and ultimately I'm going to die. But then I keep on doing this so that I don't feel bad. That dukkha is to be removed. Am I making sense? I don't need, most of us don't need more money than what we have now. Don't quote me. Most of us don't need any more money than what we have now. I'm not saying about at least most of us. But still, we keep on earning just to keep my mind happy. That's all. I don't know what happens. If I keep making, if I teach a class and then get a check at the end of the class, I feel happy. Just narrating it. Do I need that money? May not. If we don't make that money, still I will be able to get along. That is, I have enough resources to get along, but still I do this. I don't know why I do this. Sometimes we do things we don't want to do just to earn a little bit more money. This is just to make this dukkha go away. If I don't do that, I'm going to feel bad. So I am doing this. Is it clear? This is called manasika dukkha. Manasika dukkha, dukkha that is created only by the mind, nothing else. Not by my body. I can understand. If I'm hungry, I got to earn money to feed myself, or I got to just to get money to maintain my family. I got to do all these things. It's fine. But once you do this, and once you are be able to meet all those requirements, and then if my mind is not going to be happy, happy if I don't keep on earning, then what happens there? We get into this manasika dukkha, right? So, manasika dukkha can be, money, it can be possession, it can be friends, it can be a number of things from the outside world, This is the manasika dukkha, right? Then we go to the next one. One is adhyatmika dukkha, created by your own mind. Nobody forces you to feel unhappy, created by your own body, created by your own mind. Then we get to the next one, Adi Bhautika Dukkha. What is Adi Bhautika? Bhutas. Bhutas means what? Beings. There are a number of creatures around us. And then they can create problems for you. Okay. You don't have to get out of the house. Within your own house, you can get problem from the other beings in your house. It can be a bed bug, or it can be a spouse. It can be anything. Adi Bhautika Dukkha. There are some people who get the maximum dukkha within the house. You don't have to get out. Within the house, you get the maximum amount of dukkha. Think about it. Adi Bhautika Dukkha, in the olden days. So, olden days, Adi Bhautika Dukkha, you protect yourself, you build a house so that, stray animals like dogs and rats and, tigers. So, you started building a house, living in a protected environment. So, a lot of things were done to reduce this, but you are not able to completely avoid that. Still, you got to go out You got to go out. When you go out, there can be an accident, there can be a lot of bad things that can happen caused by other beings. I'm sorry. Adi Bhautika Dukkha, right? Then thirdly, we got the third one, which is known as the Adi Daivika Dukkha. Dukkha that is created by Adi Daivika. Daivika means Deva means gods, According to the Puranas, when God created the universe, according to the Puranas, He created the physical world, then He created the beings, and then He didn't want to micromanage. So what He did was He created a number of things so that the various creatures could survive. So He created air, He created Agni, He created the sun, moon, whatever, the plants, everything, so that we can all live comfortably. And then He created gods with a small g, gods, to supervise the various aspects of nature. According to some, there are 33 crore, 33 crore, but 330 million gods, There is a god for fire, there is god for sun, god for moon, God for the plants, God for water, God for earth, God for speech, everything. Every aspect of nature is said to be controlled by an intelligent being called a God, Adi Devika. And then God said, we read the Bhagavad Gita, He says that you propitiate the gods, the human being should propitiate the gods, and gods will give you whatever you require from nature. We need air all the time. Everywhere you go, you get fresh air, except in Delhi. Wherever you go, you get fresh air. Then fresh water. All of them are available. That's given by God, by the various gods. So it has to rain periodically. It has to rain. The sun will have to rise every morning and then give you sunlight half of the day. So all these things were, organized by God, and then He said that you propitiate the God will give you whatever you require, and this way you become interdependent. I don't have to micromanage the whole thing. That's what He did. So sometimes what happens is when we don't propitiate the gods by doing the various religious things like doing the sun salutation every day, you do sun salutation every day to propitiate the sun god. But then modern times, the sun salutation is done at 8 o'clock in the evening after sunset in a closed studio. Right. Sun salutation is supposed to be done during the daytime, and then you must meditate upon sun. There are ways of meditating upon the sun. That's how it is to be done. So you propitiate sun, you do the sandhya, you do whatever various things that are mentioned in the Vedas so that you can propitiate the various gods. Agni is to be propitiated. Indra will have to be propitiated, or other will have to be propitiated, so that you will get rain in due time. You don't if you don't do that, according to them, you prakopa, they are enraged. The nature becomes enraged, and then they are going to punish you. So when the earth becomes enraged, it is supposed to produce earthquakes. When fire is enraged, it produces, mass destruction due to fire. Likewise, when Vayu, Bhagavan is enraged, he creates tornadoes. We can flatten cities in no time. Likewise, what you call Abdevata, Varuna Devata, if he is enraged, he is going to flood the whole. So every aspect of nature can create problems. So he said that you maintain balance. The human being should propitiate the gods, and the gods will give you all the bounties. You find the mention in the Bhagavad Gita and several of the Upanishads anyway. So Adi Devika. So what happens is every now and then we get the we tend to feel the fury of nature. The gods of nature, acts of God. That's what they say. Acts of God. Sometimes when you take an insurance, you are protected against all calamities except acts of God. And finally, if you go to them, they will say this is an act of God. In everything they will say it's an act of God. Anyway, so these are the three. The Adi Daivika, Adi Bhautika, Adhyatmika. 3 different types of causes for dukkha. Where is the dukkha felt? Inside your head. Inside your head, you feel the dukkha. The space inside, I am not able to locate where the mental space is, but it is there. Patanjali recognizes that. Said all the activities are taking place only in the chitta, and the activities that take place in the Chitta Akasha is called a Chitta Vritti. And then let us try to, what do you call, and ultimately, if there are no Chitta Vrittis, then that is a time when this space is completely free. So, that's his approach. Don't try to, what do you call, don't try to change the world. You try to concentrate on the Chitta Akasha, try to modify it. Once to modify it, try to create it. What is the point in cleaning the whole city? You clean your own mind. That's the, anyway, the approach. Anyway, these are the three types of dukkha, dukkha traya. Then the next one is abhigataha. Abhigataha is the next word. What is in by ghata? What is in by ghata? Have you heard the term gha? Ghata. Ghata is to, what do you call, to cause injury. Cause injury, isn't it? Gha. In fact, in Tamil we use the word kaya. Ghaya means to injure. Kayam pattadu solle, kaya pattadu. That comes from this word ghaya. Abhigaya. So what happens? This dukkha doesn't, already if the mind is deficiated, what does it do? It produces unhappy feeling. It produces a very unhappy feeling, which I feel intolerable. Dukkha traya abhigataha. Abhigataha means, abhi means in the direction of. Though, so this dukkha, you can't ignore it because it is going to create, what do you call it, it injures me. I feel injury, I feel, I feel pain. I feel pain because of that. Dukkha traya abhigataha. And what is the prefix abhi means? Abhi means in the direction of. So what it means is, abhigata means you are repeatedly, already if there is a pain, if there is a headache, you take what? What do you take for a headache? What pill? You can take aspirin or whatever it be. If I take aspirin, I got, stomach ulcer, whatever. This, what do you call, where did I start on this? Abhi, yeah. And then what happens after some time? It comes back. It repeatedly comes again and again and again and again. Okay. Sometimes the medicine that you take works. So abhigata refers to you are not being able to find a solution, permanent solution for that. It keeps on coming back and back. All the three. Okay. You try to sort out your family problem, something else comes up. Or you try to, solve the problem outside, again it comes back in some different way. If you really look at the whole life, from the time, it's constant struggle, constantly struggling to, to eliminate dukkha. Constantly we are trying to eliminate dukkha, isn't it? Constantly, that's what we are. Everybody is doing this, right? Dukkha traya abhigataha. So, when this is happening is, okay, now, when the dukkha comes, we take efforts to completely eradicate it, but then you are not able to eradicate it completely. So that is the next. Jignyasa is the next word. Dukkha traya abhigataha. Having been repeatedly injured by the dukkha created or vitiated mental space created by the three types of dukkha, three causes, the adhyatmika, adibhautika and adidayika. Now, somebody wants to sit down. Already, this is what is happening. That is what is happening to me. That is what I find happening to other people. I can't go to other people to ask them for advice because they also are going through the same thing. What's the point? If I am suffering and then if I don't have anybody to find solution, what should I do? I have to find out a solution for that. Okay. So, dukkha traya abhigata jignyasa. There is a next word. What is the word jignyasa means? What is jignyasa? Say something. Yeah. Jnatum ichha jignasa. Okay, I want to know. Ichha means desire. There is a desire in me that comes, okay, what can I do? Can I find out a way by which I will be able to remove these dukkha's? So this desire comes. We don't have the time. Yeah, every now and then it comes. And then we try to find some partial solution for that. Try to adopt that. And then go back. Again, another problem. Try to find, try to fix the problem then and there a little bit. Without knowing that this won't be a permanent solution. You patch up. We do a lot of patch up work, right? Here is jignasa. We got to find out. Jignasa. Jnatum ichha jignasa. It's most of the Sanskrit words are either masculine, feminine, or neuter. Jignasa is a feminine word. The word, all the words, coming with ichha or feminine. Jnatum ichha jignasa. Like this. Praptam ichha. I want to achieve something. I want to achieve something. That's called prepsa. I want to get rid of something. It's called jihasa. All of them end with, So, so we have this jignasa, desire to know, Jignasa, tad abhigata hetave, isn't it? What is the next one? Tatu refers to the three types of the what do you call the dukkhatraya. Dukkhatraya. Abhigata. What do you have in your text? Do you have abhigata? Apagata. Yeah, well, is there anything else? Some texts call it abhigata, some texts have got apagata, some texts have got avagata. All of them are relevant. Do you have apagata? Does anybody have avagata? Ava. Okay, anyway, I will come to that. So there are three what you call prefixes possible: abhigata, avagata, or apagata. Gata against to destroy. Now, because we are being tormented by these, what do you want to do? You got to find out the ways that we can destroy this. Abhigata used to fight back. Avagata used to what you call overpower that. Avagata means to put it down. You see what I mean? I want to put this down. I don't want this to rise its head again. I want to what do you call put it down. So I want to overpower that. That's the. Then apagata, apa used to throw out. You know, like in apana. Apana means what? What do you call the prana four that is responsible to throw out what you don't need, like your the out breath. Okay, apa used to throw out. So apagata or avagata or abhigata will. I have to find out means by which I will be able to what you call destroy these the three causes of dukkha. Once that is done, then I will have no dukkha at all. Okay, I have to find out. There is no point in doing this patchwork. Okay, somebody sits down. You know, the Sankhya philosopher sits down. Let me try to find out a way by which I will be able to remove this repetitive dukkha due to the three different causes. What is Adhyatmika, Adibhautika, and Adidevika. Avagatake heto. Heto means. Heto means avagatake heto. What are the means by which I will be able to completely destroy the causes that create the dukkhas? Avagatake heto. Then, when I say this, then all the people around, including all of you, everybody says, no, why do you want to do that drishte? It's all known. We have the means known. The science has developed so much, we have the means. If you are afraid of burglars, what do? You have the security system, right? It has been developed. 15, 20 years back, if you are afraid of burglars, you got to tell the police, ask them to improve the patrol. That's what you could do. Now, almost every house has got the the security system. Okay, so things keep on improving. When there is a problem, there are people to find out solutions for that. Like medical science has developed so much. Every kind of disease, they are coming out with some new approach. Not only in the allopathic medicine, then there are others also. They come out with their own solutions. So lots of work is being done, and then lot of work they are all available. So if you have got a stomach ache, you go to a doctor, he will treat you. If you got a heart problem, you go to a cardiologist, he will treat you. Lot of things have developed now. So immediately the question is, when I say that this dukkha should be removed, then somebody will come and say, drishte sa apartha chet. He comes and says, drishte, no, don't waste your time. Why do you spend your time going to the Sankhya class? You see? Tell me what the problem is. I will sort out for you. Why do you waste your time going for the Sankhya class? Maybe it is true. But then the Sankhya people say there is one objection to it. Yeah, I agree. There are a number of means that are available to overcome these, but they are all patchwork. They are all patchwork only. There is no permanent solution for this. Drishte, sa, apartha, chet. Drishte, they are all known. Everything is known. All the means are known to you already. Drishte, sa. Sa means what? Sa means this jignasa, the desire to find out means. Apartha, it is aimless. Artha means goal. Apartha means there is no goal, there is no point in doing all this. If you say that, I say na, no. What you say is not right. You see, there is a discussion going on in one shloka. The author says, because we are constantly being tormented by the three types of dukkha created by this, I got to find out ways by which this can be removed. But then you say that you means everybody else, everybody who is not a follower. Okay, I'm okay now. Please put up with me for. I have, I have all this problem, and all of us are managing somehow, however much, whatever be the problem, we keep on managing. He says, no, mere managing is no good. Dishte sa apartha chet. No. What I'm saying is different. Because all the solutions you are talking about is suffer from two defects. What are the two defects? Ekantata, atyantato, abhavat. They don't meet these two criteria. What are the two criteria? Ekantata. Are they definite? Supposing I got a chronic headache. Okay, I take some medication. It comes repeatedly. Then after some time, that particular medication doesn't work. I got to find something else. If you take one antibiotic, it works for some time. Afterwards, the new strains are developed, so it won't work anymore. You got to find something else. Ekantata means something which is definitive. It is not definite. You don't have a definite cure for anything. Ekantata. Then atyantata. Are you sure that it is definitive, or it will be, what is it? That is, it will work definitively, ekantata. Atyantata means you take one medicine and then that problem never returns to you again. You don't have that solution. So, what I am talking about, what Sankhya says is, I know that there are means available by which you can temporarily get relief from this, but there is no permanent solution. You can't spend your entire life doing this patchwork. Isn't it? I am now trying to find out a solution by which we will be able to completely remove this once and for all. One definite means that will remove the dukkha once and for all. See? So that is what I am trying to do. I understand that there are a number of means. That's how we go about. All of us we are not keeping quiet. When there is a dukkha, we try to remove this by doing whatever we think is appropriate. But that's all temporary and it is not definitive. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. Even if it works, it's not a permanent solution. So what I am looking for is a permanent solution by which this can be removed. So this is the preamble. This is the reason why. And then Yoga Sutras also refer to this. They also tell you about the heyam dukkham anagatam. You see, dukkha will have to be removed. All the dukkha that is yet to come will have to be removed. So there is also, so yoga, and similarly Buddhism also, they refer to the Sankhya. They are also there to permanently remove dukkha. Okay, their approaches may be different, but then the goal is the same. The goal of yoga, the goal of Sankhya, the goal of Buddhism, they are the same. They are to remove the dukkha forever. Okay, if you go to the Buddhists, the main idea is to remove dukkha forever. Likewise, in your Sankhya, the whole idea is to remove dukkha forever. Can I be without dukkha forever, even though the circumstances that create the dukkha will continue to exist? That is what we have got to see. Can it happen? I can't change the world. I can't change the world. I can't change the world. Can I go through my life without feeling pain because of these three causes? Is there a permanent solution for that? Right? No? So that is the question posed in the first shloka. Dukkha trayabhigata. The means that are available to remove are patchy, are not definitive. So you got to find out a solution by which this kind of the three types. Sometime or other in life one has to ask this question. That's all. That's the whole approach here. I want to sit down and then to find out a method by which I will be able to remove dukkha. So the reason why Sankhyas I come out with this is they find everybody suffering, repeatedly, abhigataha, constantly, You remove one dukkha. One day you find dukkha in so many different ways. In one day, it can be a ill health today, or some insult from somebody. constantly, very few moments we are really, really without dukkha, right? Now, dukkha traya vigataha. Now let us also try to find out, are you bored? Not yet? Any questions you have? You want me to tell you any story now? This dukkha traya, if you go to the Yoga Sutras, they refer to the three dukkhas in a different way. It is better to know that. They use the parinama tapa samskara dukkha. They use the three dukkhas, explains it in a different way. Parinama dukkha, tapa dukkha, and samskara dukkha. I mean, many of you have gone through the Yoga Sutras, are aware of this. What is my parinama dukkha? Parinama dukkha, dukkha caused by the, what you call it, change that takes place in the outside world, outside world. I think I've explained in some of the earlier parinama dukkha, whatever appeared to be good at a particular time, because it changes, it becomes bad after some time. That's why most people get a divorce. They like the person at the time they marry, and then after some time, the other person changes. They don't mind that they also change, but they don't bother about this. They find the other person changes, and then they, So it's called parinama dukkha, because things keep on changing. The food that was very good to eat, in the morning, in the evening, it becomes stale. It parinama. The same food is something worth throw. You have to throw it out. Parinama dukkha. Dukkha caused by parinama. Constantly things change in the outside world. For that, we have got to keep on adjusting. So that is one dukkha, parinama dukkha. The next one is called the tapa dukkha. What is meant by tapa dukkha? Tapa means not getting what you want is one tapa. Not able to get rid of what you don't want. These are the two types of dukkha. In fact, in the Taittiriya Upanishad explains this. Because in the olden days, they used to believe in karma, They used to believe in karma. So a person who suffers has got tapa. What is that tapa dukkha? Kimahagam sadhuna karavam, kimaham papam akaravam iti. Kim aham sadhuna akaravam. Sadhu means good deeds, good karma. Sadhu means good karma. Kim aham sadhu na akaravam. Good deeds. What good deeds did I not do to become like this? I've been working for 25 years in an office. Why is it I can't become the CEO? Why is it I can't become the chairman or the MD of that company? My classmate, who used to score less marks than me, he is the CEO of this company, whereas, I'm just a manager of a small division, tormented by the insubordinate subordinates, cantankerous bosses, Life is miserable. I can't go up, I can't put up with this. So, kimahagam sadhuna karam. What good deeds did I not do to become like my, the CEO? That is one tapa. The other tapa is kimaham sadhuna karavam, kimaham papam akaravam iti. What papas have I done? What papa have I done to suffer like this? You go to the CEO, he may have his own problems, we don't know. He may probably see somebody who is carefree and, looking at them. He may feel, okay, why is it I'm not free? He got his own problems. See? So this kind of tapa, kimahagam sadhuna karavam, kimaham papa. Who will not have this kind of tapa? A person who has understood the nature of Brahman, who knows Brahman, will not have this kind of tapa. All of us have this constantly, right? Then the tapa also can be explained. I will explain it in a different way. Anyway, in the next shloka, it is explained. So, what are the three types of dukkha according to Patanjali? Parinama dukkha, tapa dukkha, and samskara dukkha. What is meant by samskara dukkha? Samskara means habit. See, this is a very interesting thing. The Buddhists also refer to this. Samskara dukkha is certain habits that you develop, we find to be bad, but you are not able to get over that because of the samskara. Supposing samskara is a very important thing. If you are used to doing things in a particular way, it is very difficult for me to change the way I talk, the way I keep my hand and all that. It is very difficult to change the way I speak English. I can't change it. It's how it is. I don't want to change that. That is samskara. Okay. If it is not good, it creates dukkha. Another important way the samskara dukkha is explained. Samskara dukkha is a dukkha where feeling dukkha becomes a habit. Isn't it? When you are young, if you are sulking all the time, if you sulk all the time, over a period of time what happens, it becomes extremely difficult for you to feel happiness because the mind is attuned to remain in that particular groove of samskara. So this is called samskara dukkha. Parinama tapa samskara dukkaihi, that's what Patanjali says. 3 types of dukkha according to Patanjali is parinama dukkha. Things outside world keeps on changing. Tapa dukkha, my own mind wants this, I'm not able to, I'm not able to get what I want. See, that is why the word svarga, svr, in the Amarakosha, svr, shabda upatapayoho, they explain it, a beautiful way of explaining. That is, people in the heaven, people inside the heaven, inside the heaven, shabda, they are so happy, when you are happy, what do? You shout, you shout. That's what happens when teenagers have a party, the way they express their happiness is shouting, shabda. They create, in the heaven there's a lot of noise. We don't know that. That's what this, there are a lot of noise. They are so happy. They are shouting, hi, how are you? How are you? There's a lot of partying going on in the heaven because there is no restriction. Shabda. Upatapayoho, where other people are outside, they want to get into that. Upatapayoho, tapa is there, I want to get into that, I want to get into, but I am not, when you want to get into the Swarga, when you want to the, what you call gatekeepers, the moon and the sun are said to be the gatekeepers. When you go there, what do they say? They ask you, what works have you done? No, I was the CEO of this particular company. No, this is not good to go to heaven. You must have done something else. What dharma you did? Yes, dharma, I used to, whenever I go to Sai Baba temple, I throw some coins to the people who are sitting there. That is dharma I have done. That is what you have done, you will get something in your next janma, but for coming to heaven, you must have done something extraordinary. Okay, they send you back. So, shabda upatapayoho, that's how they explain. So, the people outside heaven want to get into it, and people inside, they don't want to get out of that. They don't want to get out of that. So, but then even the tenure in heaven is limited, right? Shabda upatapayoho, right? So, now why did I say all these things? I have said all these things because dukkha, there's dukkha trayabhigataha, parinama tapa samskara dukkaihi. In fact, this samskara dukkha is a very, very important one. There's one thing that, people who have children, the children sulk, you must do something so that, they get out of this habit. It becomes very difficult when they get older to feel happy because this habit becomes very strong. It needs enormous amount of enormous amount of success to make them happy, So, there's one thing, samskara dukkha. In fact, the Buddhists also talk about, the yogis talk about this, Sankhya's also talk about this. Parinama tapa samskara dukkha. So, okay, dukkha trayabhigataha jignasa tat abhigatake heto or avagate heto or apagate heto drishte sa aparte chet na ekantato atyantato abhavate. Because all the means that you are talking about do not meet this requirement of permanence and also surety. It's neither sure nor permanent. So you got to find out a permanent and sure method by which this will have to be overcome. How can I find it? I can't find it from other people who are happy with that. So there are not many people. So you got to go. So there are a very small number of people, like the Sankhyas and Yogis, who think on these lines. So the first sloka introduces to why this Sankhya will have to be followed. They give an introduction to the reason why Sankhya will be studied. Any questions you have at this point? Is it clear? All right. We'll go to the second sloka. Drishtavadanushravikaha sahi abhishuddhi kshaya atishaya yuktaha tadviparitaha shreyan vyakta avyakta vijnanat. We want to Drishtavati, can you say it a couple of times? Drishtavati Anushravikaha Sahi Abhishuddhi Kshaya Atishaya Yuktaha Tadviparitaha Shreyan Vyakta Avyakta Nya Vijnanat Drishtavadanushravikaha Sakya Vishuddhikshayatishaya Yuktaha Tadviparita Shreyan Vyakta Vyaktagnya Vijnanat. So this is the second shloka. So now this was written in the olden times, where the religious what do you call it? Religious rites were, the religious portion of the Vedas. In the Vedas there are two main parts. One is the karma portion, the other one is the jnana portion. This comes under the jnana portion. In the karma portion, they tell you what are as I told you, that we have got to propitiate the gods. When you propitiate the gods, then you go to the higher worlds. This may not be very relevant now, but because it was written long time back, we have got to understand. So what in the olden days they used to do is, that's a very interesting approach. They all knew that the human happiness is limited. How happy can you be? There is a limited amount of happiness. In fact, the Taittiriya Upanishads tells you what is the limit to human happiness. Okay, can we take a few minutes to go through this? Yuvat syadu yuva adhyayikaha. You take the case of a young man, yuva. Yuva syat means you take the case of a young man, yuva, a man or young lady. Okay, let's make it more comprehensive. Yuva syat yuva adhyayikaha. Yuva adhyayika. Yuva means when he was young, he's become a scholar. He studied a lot. He didn't waste all his time, playing this video games. He studied a lot. He became a scholar when he was young. Yuva syadu, yuva adhyayika. He refers to the Vedic studies in the world. Adhyayika. Asishtaha. Sishta means a good person, a good character, He followed all the rules. He is a, good, developed good character. You got a good character certificate from the principal of the school. Yuva sadhu, yuva adhyayika, asishtaha, dradishtaha. At the same time, dradishtaha. Drida means all his senses, got good eyesight, good hearing and all. Dradishto, balishtaha, physically strong, he did yoga and then became very strong also. His senses are good, his health is good. Yuva syat sadhu, yuva adhyayika, asishto, dradishto, balishtaha. And now not only that, balishtaha, prithivi vittasya purnasyad. And he had plenty of prithivi. Prithivi means what? Landed property. In the olden days, you are rich, we have a lot of landed property. Prithivi vittasya purnasyad. Vitta means wealth. He is full, he has got, a lot of wealth and landed property. Okay? Yuva syat sadhu, yuva adhyayikaha, asishto, dradishto, balishtaha, tasyayim prithivi vittasya purnat, sayeko manusha anandaha. What else can you expect in the world? You are rich, you are a good character, you are a scholar, you are young, your senses are good, you are strong. Can you think of anything else that you want? You make, that is the limit to human happiness, am I right? Find out how, at least imagine how happy a person will be. We are trying to become like that. Of course, now I can't try that because he is young. I can't become young. So all the good things that you can think of in this world are endowed in this particular person, and his happiness can be considered to be one unit of human happiness. So when you are old, when your senses start dropping out, you become weak, and you never went to school. See, actually, when you get older, what makes you keep going is the intellectual happiness, because the senses cannot provide the same happiness that they provided when you were young. As you get older, you got to use your mind to feel happy. If you keep your mind blank when you are young, and you are trying to get happiness only from the outside world, when those things are not available, or when your senses become weak to get that, then there is a vacuum in the mind. Okay. So if I had not studied in fact, intellectual happiness comes in what you call comes in handy when you become old. So when you don't have all these things, you are bound to become more and more miserable. So let us say a person who is old, who has not studied anything, who has got the hearing going away, the eyesight is going away, the weak. So the unhappiness is maximum. So -1 to +1, let us say. This is the scale. युवा साधु युवा ध्यायिकः आशिष्टो दृढिष्टो बलिष्ठः तस्यैं प्रतिविवित्तस्य पूर्णात् स एको मानुष आनन्दः. You consider that to be one human happiness. Then he says, there are in the Vedas, I don't know about it. This is all I can see. I can see only, I can imagine a human being with all these, endowed with all these, all these riches. So his happiness I can imagine. But what the Vedas say is, no. When you go to the next higher world, there are 11 different, I will read it out to you at a different time. There are different higher and higher levels of happiness. You go to your next heaven, Deva Gandharva, Manusha Gandharva, then Karma Deva, Pitru Loka, then Brahma, then we got the Brihaspati, then we got the Indra Loka. Like that, there are different lokas, different heavens are there. They are all mentioned in the Vedas. In fact, according to the Vedas, there are 400 different heavens mentioned in the Vedas. So in the olden days, what they would do is, many of them will spend their time collecting good karmas, doing good karmas, so that they can go to heaven at the end of the life. So they don't bother too much about this life. Sometimes what they do, that's what we do. We try to, save a lot of money, so that when we become old, it will come in handy. So we think of the future. So here also these people think of the future. They go beyond this lifetime. Of course, you may say that, how do you know there is a life beyond? If you believe there is a life beyond, then you will have to, and then if you believe the life beyond can be very, very happy, then you will start working towards that. I mean, it's quite logical. What I'm saying is, so this idea is given here. So there are some people, immediately after this, another group of people come and tell you, no, don't worry about it. The Vedas tell you that if you do the various, religious rites, you can go to higher heavens and all that. Okay? Why don't we do this? Why don't we do this? Am I making sense? So another group of people who come and say that, why should you want to study the Sankhya Karika? Let us do. They have got a large portion of the Vedas which talk about the various religious rites. What are they? Number of religious rites are mentioned. Rajasuya Yajna, then Jyotishtoma, then we have got the, Putra Kameshti, then we have got the, Ashwamedha, Pashumedha, Naramedha, like that. There are so many different rites are mentioned in that. And then they also tell you what will be the benefit, and most of the benefits are at the end of your life. You can't enjoy them with this physical body. You got to, at the end of your life, this karma will take you to that particular world. Okay, why don't you do that? Of course, we are more, skeptical now, but in the olden days, people believed that. And then, so there are a number of people who will spend their lifetime, many times we do this, if it is going to give benefit in this life, it will. Supposing I get when I'm 60, I got some heart murmur. What do? I go to a cardiologist, okay, because I want to live long. Because I want to take care of the future. Or I can ask some pandits to come and do a Mrityunjaya Homa or Sudarshan Homa at home so that I will live longer. We always do that. Only thing is, these people extend it to further. Okay, the life beyond can be much better than the life in this world. So the Vedas are mainly, the Karma Kanda is mainly on this, right? So Drishtavat Anushravikaha. He says all the various things that you are talking about, especially quoted from the Upanishads, where the higher worlds are 100 times more and more happy than the, than what you can find in this human life. There are a number of people who spend their entire lifetime accumulating good karmas so that they can go to heaven. That's all what you have got to. So they won't bother about the difficulties that you experience in this particular world. They don't mind poverty. They don't mind other difficulties that they have. In fact, I will tell you one instance. When I was studying with my Guru Krishnamacharya, there was a place called Yoga Brotherhood. Have you heard of that? Yoga Brotherhood in the now Express Estate. They have converted into a mall now. Huge mall. The old Express Estate there used to be yoga class. I went there and then gave a lecture for 4 days, 2 hours for 4 days the 4 chapters of the Yoga Sutras. So one day, one day, one of the participants came to me and then said, I was talking about the, what do you call the dhyana portion, the 3rd day or so, the 3rd chapter. So at the end of the class, he came and then told me that he has been, he was about a little older to me, but not a very old man, about 40, 45 or so at that time. He came and said that I am doing this, I am doing Gayatri Japa. The whole idea is, somebody told him if you chant Gayatri 100 crore times or 10 million times, the benefit will be, afterlife will be something great. You will go to some heaven, right? Sun world or something, okay? So what he did was, that was his main life goal, So his wife was agreeable to that. So every day he decided not to look for any promotion. He didn't want to go out of the city so that he can, he can concentrate on this. So he had to do work so that, to maintain the family. So every morning he will sit down and do Gayatri Japa 1000 times, 1008 times or so. That takes about an hour. The preliminary is an hour or an hour and a half. So that he had done for 23 years when he met, and then I went home and calculated, if you do 1000 times every day, how long does it take to do 1 crore? So it takes about 33 years or so. So he was already done 23 years, so he was going to complete another 10 years. But the only thing he mentioned was, he's heard me talk about the, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. He said, even though I am doing Gayatri Japa for 23 years, still I find that I am not able to remain totally focused during the time I do the Japa. I mean, we had some discussion. What I am trying to say is, he was able to, give up everything else that you could get by promotion or this and that, and they was able to completely believe in the, in this particular procedure. So, number of people are there even now who would forsake all the, good things that this world can offer, will concentrate upon some of the things, great things mentioned in the Vedas. Is it clear? Is it clear? So, in the olden days, the kings used to, if a king wants to become an emperor, what do they do? Right, okay. What do they do? When a king wants to become an emperor, what does he do? He does an Ashwamedha Yajna. So the Ashwamedha Yajna is a horse sacrifice that is mentioned in the Vedas. That's what they will try to do. Now, let us come to this text now. Drashtavat Anushravika. Drashta means whatever that has been mentioned in the earlier shloka. Drashtavat. Drashtavat means whatever means that you have talked about in the earlier shloka are the same things applicable to the means suggested by the ritualistic people. What do they say? You do these rituals, you will be able to have happiness many times, hundreds of times more than what you can get. So why don't you follow that? Okay, it can be quite tempting. In fact, I'll tell you one thing. So far as the warriors are concerned, people who fight the wars, it is said that if they, if they die in a just war, they go to a Virasvarga, they go to heaven. In fact, every religion talks about it. Every religion says if you do something for the religion, you go to heaven. Okay, if you believe, nobody knows that, but if you believe that, you will do that. That's what happens even now. Even now, lots of people are, believe that if they do something for religion, their next life will be great. Isn't it? You all know that. It's not in one religion. Almost every, even in Hinduism, they call Dharma Yuddha. You Dharma Yuddha. In fact, Krishna tells Arjuna, you got to fight. It's a Dharma Yuddha. It's a just war. You can't avoid that. Anyway, so here, Drashtavat Anushravikaha, he says, even that is defective. Even that is defective when compared to what I am going to say. Why is it is defective? Drashtavat Anushravikaha. Anushravika refers to Shravika refers to the Vedic rituals. Anushravika, following the Vedic rituals. Anushravika, Drashtavat, like what you have mentioned earlier in the first chapter, first shloka, Anushravika. In what way are they defective? Atishaya, isn't it? What do you got here? Atishaya, Kshaya? Yeah. There are three objections he raises for that. What are they? Drishtavadanushtva avishuddhi kshaya atishaya yuktaha. What is avishuddhi? See, all these various activities, religious activities, are not completely sattvic, you know. They are not completely pure. They are not completely pure. Okay. For instance, when you do a yajna, they are talking about, when you do a yajna, what happens? You got to use a lot of, in fact, yajnas can be done with a lot of resources only. You use a lot of, what do you call, grains, ghee, milk, and, you know, if it is many of the yajnas, you got to offer, you know. So, it is supposed to, you know, it deprives other people of their food, right? Sometimes these, what do you call, sacrifices will involve, you know, Pashumeda. Pashu means, Pashu is made an offer. Then Narameda, you know, human sacrifice were there in those places. Then Ashwameda, where, you know, the horse sacrifice were there. So, even though you may be able to get what you want ultimately, it is always mixed with a tinge of, what do you call, papa. It is tinge. So, is it clear? So, Avishuddhi means they are not absolutely pure. They are not absolutely pure. In fact, this idea is taken by Patanjali in his Yoga Sutras. He says, Karma ashukla akrishnam yoginaha trividham itaresham. The activities of all the people of three types. What are they? Krishna, Shukla Krishna. What is meant Shukla? Shukla means sattvic, you know, sattvic activities. Krishna means what you call black activities, and most of the other activities are Krishna Shukla. It's a mixture of these two. Okay, so depending upon whether it's a pure activity or a black activity or a most of the activities are mishra. You do good to somebody, you are going to deprive somebody else of their rights. That's how things work out. Okay. So Avishuddhi refers to all the religious activities that we're talking about. So that is one. So they are not absolutely pure. Then what is the next one? Avishuddhi. Then the next one is Atishaya. Atishaya means they are not, what do you call, they are not like going to the peak of the Everest, you know. You go to heaven, there, as I told you, there are 400 different heavens mentioned in the Vedas. So you go to heaven number 74, okay, by doing this particular yajna. Definitely much superior to what life you will have in the human life. But then what you do, after you go there, after you settle down, what do? You start looking up. There you will start looking up at the 75th heaven, or the 88th heaven, or the 100th heaven. So you feel unhappy. That's what we do now. Whatever I wanted, I have. I wanted to earn so much of money. I wanted to have a family. I wanted to have a house. I want to have a good number of friends. I want to belong to a particular association. I have done everything. Okay. But still I'm not happy. Okay. So the same idea will continue there, because there is always something more what you already achieved. So what will happen? There is going to be unhappiness by comparison. Atishaya, because there is something which is higher than what you have already achieved. If you are a millionaire, then you compare yourself with a multimillionaire. If you are a multimillionaire, you compare yourself with a billionaire. Okay. Atishaya, right? Avishuddhi, Atishaya. What is the next word? Kshaya. Kshaya is the next word. Kshaya means the punya that you accumulated, once it is used up, then you have got to go back to the cycle. You come down, and then you are going to suffer more. Again you come back, come to this. There is a story about it. I'll tell you a story. There was a king. The king wanted to become an emperor. So what did he do? He did, Ashwamedha Yajna, and then in course of time, he was able to dominate many of the neighboring countries. He dominated the neighboring countries. He became the emperor. Then after that, somebody told him, if you do 100 Ashwamedha Yajnas, you will become Indra. Indra is the highest, the boss of all the devas. So you will become Indra. He said, okay, why not I do that? I have nothing else to do. So then what he did, he taxed his people, enlarged his army, collected a lot of resources, started many ordnance factories, developed weapons, and then he went around and then 99 times more Ashwamedha. Already other people are defeated, so they never offered any resistance to him. So after he did 100, Ashwamedha Yajnas, in course of time he died, and then his subtle body, went all the way to heaven, and then he was crowned, and crowned as what? As Indra. I'm just trying to explain the word Kshaya, okay? I'm not telling you just a story. It is got relevance to this. So he became the Indra, and then as soon as he became Indra, then he wanted to completely change the whole heaven, because he said, no, this is not the way. Heaven should be better than what I see. So he said that there should be 4 towers, east 1 tower, west 1 tower, and then the architect, the divine architect, is the Vishwakarma. He called him, and then he drove him crazy. Do this, completely modify the palace. He did everything. He went on doing this. Vishwakarma became so disgusted, because there were Indras before. And then he went and then sat under a tree and then didn't report for duty for a day. At that time, there was a sage who passed by. The sages can go all over the place. They can go to heaven, they go to the other place, they come to earth, they can do anything they want. So he saw Vishwakarma sitting under. Then he asked him what was the problem. He said, this new Indra is crazy. He's driving me crazy. He's not only crazy, he's driving us all crazy. Then he asked him what happened. Then he said, yes, what you say is right. A little bit of adjustment is good, but completely changing it is not going to be good. So I will go and talk to him. So he went to him and then went to the Indra. And then, of course, naturally, he had seen him when he was a king. So he invited him, and then he was very happy that a great sage has come to see him when he has achieved the best possible position in the whole universe. And then the sage, as soon as he came, and then he talked to him for a few minutes, and then how he enjoyed it. He said, no, I'm not very happy. I should change this, I should change this and change this. Then at that time, in the palace, he is at from the corner there was a small hole, and a few ants, ants started coming in a column. They're coming one behind the other. He showed that, the sage showed that to the king, to Indra, and then do you see these ants? Yes, I see the ants. Then immediately angry, he became angry, and then he said, okay, I must call Vishwakarma and ask him to completely close all the holes. I don't like this. So he called Vishwakarma, and then Vishwakarma came in, and he started shouting at him. Then the sage stopped him and they said, no, the reason why I want you to see is not, to shout at Vishwakarma. I want to tell you something. This, how many ants you saw? About 100 of them, one thing, all these 100 ants were Indras before this, before. So, do you see what I mean? They were all Indras. Then after their karma was over, they fell down, and then, they had to continue with their karma. So Kshaya means it is not that once you become Indra, you're going to be there forever. So be aware of this. And then, so when you go to heaven, it is not permanent. Okay, if you may there for that particular yuga, and then you ultimately, when the dissolution takes place, you are on par with any other creature. Only your karma is going to take you. So if you use all your good karma, after that you have got to fall down. So trying to go to heaven is not a solution. That's the whole idea. The whole idea is trying to do these religious activities so that I can go to a higher place. All the activities that you do to achieve something more in this world, which is mentioned in the first chapter, all those things that you do so that you can go to heaven, and then which is much more rosy than what you can find in this world, is also not rosy because of the three reasons. What are the 3 reasons? Avishuddhi. When you want to go to heaven, you go to heaven with a baggage of karma. Most of it is good, which will take you to the heaven, but there is always something which is remaining, will you put you back to become an ant. You see, it is not, because when you did the Ashwamedha Yajna, it is not an absolutely pure. There were a few things, a few ahimsa, a few himsa you have done. So you got to suffer for that. You got to become an ant afterwards. All those people who become Indras ultimately become ants because of the mixture of good and bad deeds that they have done. So one thing, all these religious activities are not a solution, because Atishaya, you go to a particular world, there is something higher than that. You are going to feel bad about it by comparison. Kshaya is going to completely. And then what is the third one? Avishuddhi, Kshaya. Ashuddhi, yeah, Ashuddhi is, no, first is Ashuddhi because it is mixed, Kshaya because it is going to be, and Atishaya because there is always something higher than that. So, because of these three defects, the solution is not a perfect solution. Is it clear? Atishaya. Yuktaha means it is what is associated with that. Yuktaha means united with that. So, all the solutions that are suggested in the Vedas by which you will go to heaven and all that is defective because Atishaya Yuktaha. Okay, then he says, he comes out with his own solution. What does he say? Tad viparitaha shreyan vyakta avyaktagnya vijnanate. Right, now he says, so I will give you the solution for this. You can decide whether you want to continue with this at the end of his solution. What does he say? Vyakta avyaktagnya vijnanate. Vijnana means understanding. Complete understanding, vijnanat. Understanding of what? Vyakta. Understanding the manifest universe. How this universe came about. Vyakta. Avyakta. What is the source of this universe? Avyakta. Jnaha, which is the one, nature of the self, which knows all these things. So these are the three things I got to know. Vyakta, the manifest universe. Avyakta, the source of this particular universe. And Jnaha, the one who knows the whole thing. The consciousness. The individual soul. So the knowledge of these three, Vyakta, Avyakta, Jna, Vijnanate. Vijnanate means by the correct understanding of these three entities, Vyakta, Avyakta, Vijnanate, you will achieve what? Shreyan, which is superior. Tad viparitaha. Tad viparitaha. Viparitaha means something different from what? The feeling of dukkha that you had to start with. We started discussing about dukkha. When you understand the true nature of the self, when you are understanding able to how the universe is created, what is the source of the universe, when you understand all these things, you will be able to achieve a mental state which is superior to and different from the one that you had earlier. Tad viparitaha shreyan. Viparita means you will not have dukkha. What will you have? Sukha. Complete, what do you call it? Chitta vritti, nirodha will be there. There won't be any pain whatsoever. That pain will not be there. Vyakta, avyakta, jna, vijnanate. Vyakta, avyakta. So now he has got to explain these things in the next 70 shlokas. Yeah, we'll chant the first shloka. If you have any questions, you think about it. Ask any questions. What breakfast I had, whatever. Dukkat abhigatat. Jignasa. Tat. Abhigatake. Etau. Drishte Sapartha Chenna Ekanta Atyantataha Abhavat दुःखत्रयाभिघातात् जिज्ञासा तदभिघातके हेतौ दृष्टे सा पार्थ चेन्नैकान्ततात्यन्ततो भावात्. Next shloka will be दृष्टवदानुश्रविकः सही अविशुद्धि क्षय अतिशययुक्तः तद्विपरीतः श्रेयान् व्यक्ताव्यक्तज्ञ विज्ञानात् दृष्टवदानुश्रविकः Sahya Vishuddhi Kshayati Shayayuktaha Tadviparita Shreyan Vyakta Vyaktagnya Vijnanat. So these two sutras, in the first sutra, first sloka, he talked about the three types of dukkha, the normal methods that are being adopted. He says it is not satisfactory because there is no permanence or surety of the various means. Then the suggestion is given that, okay, what about the Vedic remedies by which we will be able to reach worlds which are much superior, hundreds and hundreds of times more happiness. Then he says even that is defective because, as I told you, it is kshaya, it is not a permanent solution, it is limited. Then it is also, what you call, in comparison you may suffer. And also, what is the third one? Avishuddhi. It is also made up, you do certain associated bad karmas also, which you will have to suffer later on. So, that is why yoga is considered to be an activity which is neither good or bad. Good activities take you to higher worlds, bad activities take you to lower worlds. Okay. And many of the activities that we do are mishra. So whereas yogic activities are completely neither good nor bad nor mishra. What do you do in yogic activities? You do your asanas, you don't harm anybody else. You do your pranayama, you are completely with yourself. Then you sit down and meditate. What do you think about? You don't think about the outside world, you think about the Atman. So everything, all the things that you do, there is no motivation to achieve anything from the outside world, not this world, nor the heaven. So the whole approach is to be able to understand your own self. There is absolutely no reason for an accumulation of karma. So that is what Patanjali emphasizes in the Yoga Sutras. There is again the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavad Gita also, Krishna says, Yoga Karma Sukausalam. Of all the activities, Yoga Karma is the best, is the Kaushala, is the one that gives you the best Shreyas. Right. So any questions you have? Yes.
But then yoga does help erase some karmas?
That is why, see, so if you follow the yogic theory, what they say is, once you are able to understand the true nature of the self by doing these ways, you have got to reach the ultimate stage. There is no point in leaving it halfway. When you are understanding the self and you have got no accumulation of karma, then it is not going to lead you to another janma. On the other hand, if you have got accumulated karma and you have got an understanding of the nature of the self, there is no motivation for me to take another birth. There is no desire anymore. There is no further desire in me. I will be like a Nitya Suri, completely satisfied. A satisfied, individual will not act, will not go out and then try to get something from the outside world or from the heaven. So this is the main approach of yoga. That's Patanjali emphasizes in that. Here also, that's what so here the mere understanding of the nature of the self is sufficient for you to, in fact, the Sankhya's do not even suggest that you have got to sit down and meditate on that. Ultimately, what they say is, yuha. Sit down and then contemplate upon this. Sit down and contemplate upon that. And ultimately, when you are able to understand, yes, this is how the whole thing is. I have no clear idea about it. Once I get the clear about the nature of the self, nature of the universe, then what happens? There is no further motivation for me to go ahead. So that is why the Sankhya's give a lot of importance to sitting and thinking about it in a logical way, so that you will be able to come to the ultimate understanding of the nature of the self. Right? Yes.
Not quite clear about the difference between Vyakta, Avyakta and the...
Yeah, he is going to explain that. Okay, the next 70 shlokas are there. He is going to explain what Vyakta is, what is Avyakta is, Jnana is, right. So I think I mentioned to you, Vyakta is the manifest universe, Avyakta is the source of that, and then Jnana is the Purusha, the one that knows all these things. These are the three entities that we have got to understand.